President Lee Jae-myung is heading home after visiting New York, and his last stop was at the New York Stock Exchange, where he urged financiers and business leaders to invest more in South Korea. U.S. President Donald Trump says South Korea's $350 billion investment commitment is an upfront payment, as Seoul and Washington continue to hold talks on how to fund the package. Trump also said he'll put a 100% import tax on pharmaceutical drugs, unless their manufacturers are building factories in the United States. South Korea's military says it fired warning shots after a North Korean merchant ship crossed the maritime border between the two Koreas. We begin with President Lee Jae-myung's visit to the New York Stock Exchange, where he sought to attract more global investment before heading back to Seoul. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin starts us off.
This is South Korean President Lee Jae-myung ringing the iconic opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange on Thursday. At the world's largest stock exchange by trading volume and the oldest on Wall Street, President Lee hosted the Korea Investment Summit, where he urged heavyweight financiers and business leaders to invest more in South Korea. The key topic was the so-called Korea discount, a term describing how South Korean companies are often undervalued compared to their global peers. President Lee cited geopolitical tensions on the Korean peninsula as a major cause.
남북 대치, 군사적 대치 때문에 오는 불안 정성, 이로 인한 저평가, 휴전 중인 나라인데 또 군사 밀도도 높고 혹시 무슨 일 생기지 않을까?
Highlighting North Korea's advances in missile technology, Lee emphasized his three-stage roadmap of nuclear suspension, reduction, and eventual denuclearization. He once again described U.S. President Donald Trump as the only one capable of brokering such a deal, a peacemaker, while pledging that South Korea will act as a pacemaker supporting the process. The president also outlined measures to make South Korea's investment environment more transparent and trustworthy, including stricter action against stock manipulation and unfair trading practices, and further amendments to the Commercial Act to better protect minority and individual investors. Regarding foreign investors, Lee pledged to resolve issues that many of them see as barriers to entry.
핵심은 역시 이제 요게 환거래 시장 문제라고 제가 들었습니다. 그 문제도 저희가 아주 빠른 시간 내에 저희가 또 해소할 생각입니다. 지금 외국환 거래 시장도 지금 시간 제한이 꽤 있는데 그 시간 제한을 거의 없애는 방향으로.
Currently, South Korea's foreign exchange market operates from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. the following day, and the Korean won lacks a full offshore trading market. While Lee is the fourth South Korean president to host such an investment event in New York, he was the first to hold it at the New York Stock Exchange. So, with this, President Lee has wrapped up his trip to New York, which focused on diplomacy and economic outreach. He will return home on South Korea's presidential jet on Friday. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News, New York.
So President Lee Jae-myung has now wrapped up his trip to New York, having made his debut at the United Nations. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min, who is traveling with the president, has a recap of the trip and takes a closer look at what it means for Korea's diplomacy.
The highlight of President Lee Jae-myung's week-long U.S. trip was his first speech at the 80th United Nations General Assembly.
저는 오늘 세계 시민의 등불이 될 새로운 대한민국이 국제사회에 완전히 복귀했음을 당당하게 선언합니다.
He was referring to Korea's recovery from the martial law incident last December as he introduced a new initiative to end confrontation on the Korean peninsula.
교류, 관계 정상화, 비핵화, 즉 END를 중심으로 한 포괄적인 대화로 한반도에서의 적대와 대결의 시대를 종식하고 평화 공존과 공동 성장의 새 시대를 열어가야 합니다.
Another key takeaway was South Korea leading an open debate at the UN Security Council for the responsible use of AI at a time of growing uncertainty. No other South Korean leader has presided over the debate as chair.
대한민국은 글로벌 책임 강국으로서 AI가 인류의 지속 가능한 미래를 만드는 훌륭한 도구가 될 수 있도록 국제사회와의 협력을 주도하는 길에 앞장설 것입니다.
E's UN debut means a lot for Korea's summit diplomacy, says his national security advisor, Ri Sung-nak.
President Yi's trip to the United Nations shows summit diplomacy is now on a stable trajectory, something which has unfolded very quickly since the G7 summit right after he took office in June.
Economic diplomacy was also at the center, with Yi having met BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, American financiers, and leaders from European countries, including the Czech Republic, for economic cooperation. The president also met U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent amid the allies' stalled trade talks to lower Trump's sweeping tariffs.
This was President Yi's debut on the UN stage, a major platform for multilateral diplomacy and dialogue. As he concludes his U.S. trip, more summit diplomacy awaits the South Korean leader at home next month with APEC member economies. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, New York.
A North Korean delegation is also heading to New York for the UN General Assembly. The North State Media Korean Central News Agency said on Friday that Deputy Foreign Minister Kim Sun-kyung departed from Pyongyang with the delegation the day before, flying via Beijing to attend the session in New York. Kim is expected to deliver a speech next week, where he will reportedly give North Korea's stance on issues such as Pyongyang's nuclear policy and the Russia-Ukraine war. This is the first visit by a senior North Korean official to the United States since January 2019. And this morning, one North Korean merchant vessel violated the de facto inter-Korean sea border, the Northern Limit Line. According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the ship crossed the NLL near Baekneung-do Island in the West Sea at around 5 a.m. The Joint Chiefs of Staff said the South Korean military issued warning broadcasts and fired warning shots in accordance with operational procedures, making the vessel retreat beyond South Korea's jurisdictional waters. The South military said it will maintain its readiness posture and firmly respond to any situation to defend the NLL, which Pyongyang calls a ghost line without legal grounds. Meanwhile, Seoul's Unification minister says North Korea could have up to 2,000 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. Our Park Jun-an has the details.
Unification Minister Chung Dong-young, citing experts' estimates, claimed on Thursday that North Korea's highly enriched uranium stockpile amounts to as much as 2,000 kilograms. Chung emphasized that, as such, forcing North Korea to abandon its nuclear program through sanctions would be impossible. Chung claimed that just 5 to 6 kilograms of plutonium is enough to make one nuclear bomb, adding that 2,000 kilograms of highly enriched uranium could yield an enormous quantity of nuclear weapons. Minister Chung made this statement during a press briefing at the Seoul government complex, referring to President Lee Jae-myung's three-step denuclearization strategy, which Lee outlined in a keynote address at a high-level meeting at the 80th UN General Assembly. On inter-Korean relations, Chung reiterated the government's pragmatic two-state approach, stressing that recognizing North Korea as a de facto state does not mean permanent division. Chung stressed that South and North Korea are de facto two states, already two states under international law. The reality is, at least 50 to 60% of the population answers that North Korea is a state. However, recognizing two states does not mean permanent division. It means recognizing statehood within the special relationship that has emerged during the provisional process of moving toward unification. He further argued this is a realistic, pragmatic perspective and a flexible view of inter-Korean relations. The Lee Jae-myung administration's national agenda includes concluding an inter-Korean basic agreement, which is a recognition of the two states. The Lee administration's three-step approach to reducing military tensions and restoring inter-Korean trust includes a stop in the sophistication of nuclear and missile capabilities, going through a reduction process, and reaching dismantlement. This approach echoes the END initiative proposed by President Lee at the UN General Assembly on Tuesday, short for Exchange, Normalization, and Denuclearization. 박준환, Arirang News.
On the economic front, U.S. President Donald Trump says South Korea's $350 billion investment commitment is an upfront payment as Seoul and Washington continue negotiations over how to fund the package. Speaking to reporters at the White House on Thursday, Trump compared the figure to Japan's $550 billion pledge and credited his tariff policy with bringing in tremendous revenue. South Korea's investment package stems from a July trade deal in which Seoul pledged billions and other concessions in exchange for Washington lowering tariffs from 25% to 15%. The talks between the two sides remain stalled over key details of the deal. And the U.S. leader has also announced another round of sweeping import taxes. In a social media post on his Truth Social network on Thursday, President Donald Trump stated that unless pharmaceutical companies are building factories in the United States, they will face 100% tariffs with no exception. Trump added that he will impose 50% tariffs on kitchen cabinets, 30% tariffs on upholstered furniture, and 25% on heavy trucks. He said this plan comes to protect domestic heavy truck manufacturers from unfair foreign competition. Meanwhile, Spain and Italy have sent ships to help a flotilla of boats attempting to deliver aid to the Gaza Strip, after some of the boats were recently targeted by drones, which organizers blame on Israel. Meanwhile, 700,000 Palestinians have reportedly fled Gaza City. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Spain and Italy are stepping up their naval presence in the Mediterranean to protect the global Samud flotilla, a coalition of 8 ships sailing toward Gaza. The flotilla has come under repeated drone attacks in recent days, which organizers blame on Israel. Italy said Thursday it is sending a second naval vessel, following the deployment of a frigate after one such attack earlier this week. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, speaking from New York where he's attending the UN General Assembly, announced that a warship will leave Cartagena on Friday. He emphasized that international law must be respected and noted that citizens from 45 nations are part of the aid mission. The naval assistance comes as flotilla organizers reported that multiple boats were attacked by low-flying drones on Wednesday night. Passengers aboard the flotilla say drones dropped flashbangs and unidentified objects close to their vessels. Meanwhile, inside Gaza, the Israeli military has intensified its ground offensives on Gaza City. The Times of Israel reported that roughly 700,000 residents have now fled, which is around 2/3 of the city's pre-war population. However, civilian deaths continue, as 11 people were killed in a strike on a home in central Gaza. According to Gaza's health ministry, more than 65,000 people have been killed since October 7, 2023. Over in Washington, President Donald Trump said he believes a deal to end the war could be close.
We had a really great meeting. I think a lot was determined at that meeting, and I have to meet with Israel, and I have to do that also. They know what I want, and I think we can get that one done. I hope we can get it done.
According to U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Trump has outlined a 21-point peace plan for Gaza and the Middle East in talks with leaders of Muslim-majority nations on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And on the cultural front, beyond government talks, it's culture that connects people. Seoul is showing how cultural exchange can tie nations closer together. Our Park Hyo-bin has more.
Dancing, music, and shared laughter. What may look like a festival is in fact a stage for diplomacy. Unlike traditional diplomacy that centers on government negotiations, public diplomacy brings citizens themselves to the forefront of culture exchanges. And this week, Seoul has become the very meeting ground as it hosts the 7th Public Diplomacy Week under the theme Connecting the World Together. More than 30 foreign embassies and cultural centers in South Korea are taking part.
The event is more than just seeing different cultures. It allows visitors to take part, which enables a real culture exchange to happen.
At Poland's booth, a lace-making session is in full swing. Visitors carefully weave lace out of thread finer than a strand of hair. Each stitch reveals the intricacy of Polish craft, drawing curious eyes and hands into the process.
I've always liked knitting, so when I heard this was traditional crocheting from a country I didn't know well, I was curious to try. It's more fun than I expected.
Meanwhile, at the Columbia booth, vibrant music fills the air as dancers perform the traditional rhythm, kumbancha. Moments later, a workshop transforms dance into dialogue as visitors learn steps and instruments directly from the performers.
Well, culture and arts can strengthen the diplomacy between the two countries. And today we brought music, but there are several other expressions, particularly in Colombia. So what we are trying to do is have a comprehensive portfolio of cultural expressions and basically literally cross the world to show it to Korea.
By using culture and art as a medium, the event demonstrates the power of public diplomacy that transcends borders. Organizers say it proves that diplomacy is not confined to meeting rooms, but can also flourish in everyday culture exchanges.
Public diplomacy is about two-way exchange between our citizens and foreigners in South Korea, deepening mutual understanding and allowing people to share South Korea with the world while learning from other cultures.
Public Diplomacy Week, which runs until this Saturday, proves that in today's world, culture has the power to act as diplomacy itself. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In France, a Paris court has sentenced former President Nicolas Sarkozy to 5 years in prison for criminal conspiracy related to campaign funding from Libya. This is the first time a modern French head of state faces actual incarceration. On Thursday local time, a Paris criminal court found Sarkozy guilty of criminal association in a plot involving his aides and Libyan officials to solicit funds from then-Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi for Sarkozy's successful 2007 presidential campaign. The court sentenced him to 5 years in prison. Sarkozy, who served as president from 2007 to 2012, described the verdict as a national humiliation and vowed to appeal. However, he will have to spend time behind bars regardless of the appeal, as the court ruled on exceptional gravity grounds. 2 close associates were also convicted. The start date has not been set yet. Also in Europe, another wave of drone activity forced airports in Denmark to close. Officials say the drones are a hybrid attack intended to spread fear. Danish authorities said on Thursday that Aalborg Airport was shut down for 3 hours late on Wednesday due to unauthorized drone activity. Billund Airport, Denmark's second largest, was also closed for an hour. Drone sightings were also reported near Esbjerg, Sønderborg, and the Skrydstrup Air Base, home to F-16 and F-35 jets. The airports reopened early on Thursday after safety checks. Danish Defense Minister Truls Lund Poulsen described the incursions as coordinated and sophisticated, calling them a systematic and deliberate hybrid attack. He said multiple drone types were used, suggesting the operation was planned by a professional actor. Justice Minister Peter Hummelgaard added that the intent is likely to create fear and division and to test Denmark's response capabilities. This is the second such incident in Denmark this week, following a drone-induced shutdown at Copenhagen Airport earlier. Protesters gathered in Mexico City on Thursday to demand transparency regarding the disappearance of 43 Ayotzinapa students in 2014 to mark the 11th anniversary of the incident. The crowd, consisting of parents, students, and activists, called on the Defense Secretary to release 800 pages of Army records related to the events of September 26, 2014. On that day, around 100 students from a teachers' college were on their way to a protest when they were intercepted by police. Clashes with the authorities led to 6 people being killed by police gunfire. 43 students went missing after the shootings, with eyewitnesses saying they were taken by police. The remains of 3 of the students have been found as of 2025. Finally, FIFA officially unveiled 3 mascots for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, reflecting all 3 host nations on Thursday. They're Clutch the bald eagle, representing the United States, Maple the moose, representing Canada, and Zayu the jaguar, representing Mexico. Each mascot embodies characteristics tied to its host nation, with Clutch being described as adventurous and unifying, Maple combining creativity and resilience, and Zayu symbolizing strength and agility. This will be the first World Cup with 3 host nations. FIFA president said the mascots will play a central role in the tournament's festive atmosphere. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
It was a rough morning commute for those in the central inland regions due to dense fog. Skies will be fairly clear in the central region today. However, the skies will remain cloudy in the south with some rain in the forecast. We can expect up to 50 millimeters in the southern coast of Jeollanam-do Province, up to 60 millimeters on Jeju. Well, speaking of Jeju, parts of the island are under a heat wave advisory. Temperatures soared above 30 degrees Celsius yesterday, and it's going to remain pretty warm there and across the rest of the country as well. Most cities will see highs soaring to 29 degrees this afternoon. Seoul will be at 28 degrees under sunny skies, so it won't feel like the end of September today. But nationwide rain on Sunday will bring cooler air to the country. Meanwhile, Jeju will see rain into next Monday, so please keep an umbrella handy.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.